Never hit your nose.
How's it coming?
Oh, I'm just setting up. Check you out.
I'm not in a suit, right?
Video conference. Look at you. Looks like you went to a golf match. I don't know.
This is what my office looks like when I don't have it wired for sound and everything, and lights and stuff. Very dark.
Oh, I like that. I actually thought it was better on skin. I'm streaming this for people who just want to lurk, but I'm just gonna be writing and meeting with friends like you to go along.
That works. What you writing?
This is an article on the last show. There was an idea of expanding. You and I probably talked about this. Expanding the parking and stations into a place where writers could deposit compositions, articles,
right.
Come out. Don't know what form that's going to take. Is it going to be just, tutorials, or is it going to be news of the day? Going to be quick snippets? Going to be big articles? People are going to get paid? They're going to do it voluntarily? I don't know. It hasn't taken any kind of form yet. But I've always wanted to do this, and that is to show people where to go look for stuff. I want to write something. Let's say I'm a new guy or ish. I want to write, but I don't think I know enough. Well, that shouldn't stop you. There's places to look for information, and anybody can write. You don't have to right? So that's what these things have always been about. And now I'm finally doing them without any real preparation.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. How you doing?
Not bad. I had a rubber chicken dinner tonight, so I was running. I walk into my my thing, and a bunch of my buddies, work colleagues are there. First thing the first guy says to me is, "Did you win your election yet?" I'm like, "Oh God."
So they know you're right.
Well, they all see all the Facebook stuff. So as soon as my video went viral, all my friends started seeing it, and the Kotaku thing.
Yeah.
Everybody saw that, so now they all are harassing me about it. So I better win this thing, or else I'm not going to live it down.
Yeah, man, this is like one election you don't want to lose, right?
I know, right?
I mean, it's like, hey, you can't do it in a video game.
Exactly. That's I fully expect them to say that.
Although this is not really it's not really a video game. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah, I try to explain that it's a hobby and an avocation or whatever else folks want to call it, but
yeah, I know
in the
it's
end,
always a video game to people who don't play. But
yeah,
what I mean is, it's not even the right clientele for a lot of these guys are employable.
exactly.
So okay, you were on the last show, so let's say
it was fun.
Yeah, I was unfortunately not able to stick around. I would like to have done that show to try to balance out the new guys with the guys that are around. But it went really well. Okay, 8 minutes.
Let's play Fortnite.
Fortnite, yeah.
Yeah, that's what my son was doing earlier. He was upset they took Thanos out.
Yeah, Fortnite everywhere. Yesterday we went to a concert for kids. when they were done, we were all on the lawn, kind of talking as we're leaving the auditorium, and all the kids started breaking into simultaneous dances.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We were at a little league game, and one of the kids got on third base and started doing one of the dances, and Nick got all excited. It's like, hey, look, he's doing the dance from Fortnite.
That's a
And it's funny because I don't like the game. I don't play it very well. It's just I'm a more of a PUBG guy,
uh,
but my wife plays it with him, and she likes it.
is she good?
So
Does she wield
she's
weapons
okay.
well?
I mean, she's very good at hiding. She's sitting here with me anyway, so I have to be nice. So
Yeah.
you can tell when it's gone viral when my wife plays it.
Well, it's a phenomenon. Pokemon was. I don't know.
Right. Exactly.
It's cartoon PUBG, really, isn't it?
It's
Like,
all it is, and that's why I prefer the more realistic version. But you know,
I did
PUBG
too.
doesn't have any
So,
building. That's the only other thing. They have building in Fortnite.
oh, that's right. One of the things I liked about SWG was it was kind of more realistic rather than cartoony.
Right. That's why I didn't like the Knights of the Old Republic because it was too cartoony. I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah,
That's
I
why I didn't
think
like Star Trek either. I thought Star Trek was okay, but it was a little too cartoony.
all those games are cartoony. This one's not.
Correct. Which is nice.
Okay, so this article, you can. Oh, I'm not screen sharing yet. Hold on a second. That's important to this. There, now it's
Good
screen
eye,
sharing.
hon. There you go. Uh, WordPress.
Yes, I actually don't normally compose on WordPress, but I wanted to show the tool that it goes in.
Yeah, I do the same. What I tend to do is take it in a Word doc and then run it through Notepad to cut all the
Text
you
links.
basically to get rid of all of the hyperlinks and everything like that they do because it always all the formatting gets jumbled when you jump from Word into WordPress. But
Well, it's pretty good coming from Word. It keeps a lot of the format, but if you do anything special, you're in trouble.
yeah,
That's why I just would rather start in text with this. What I hate is creating all these links, bringing them in, and all the links break.
oh god, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and I don't want to go. Maybe an editor or someone you hire can do that. But
When I used to be editor in chief of the most read Republican blog in Virginia, and we did that. I did that for about well 7 years I think.
oh,
And
really?
I would punch out articles all the time, and I mainly did commentary, but we'd have to. I'm always editing everything and trying to get all the stuff done properly and format as it looks right on the site. We redesigned the site like 4 times while I was there, and it's just a real pain.
You still into editing?
I do it, um, but I mean, the funny thing is, and not to get too personal or anything, but I stepped back from literally like everything last year because my wife got cancer,
Oh,
but she beat it,
good.
and we had a year basically where we like a lost year where we all we focused on was her health. We got her where she needed to be. She's all fine now, cancer free, back to normal. All the surgeries are done, everything like that. We're just monitoring now, make sure it doesn't come back.
Mm.
So I have all this free time on my hands, and all the stuff that I used to be working. I'd have literally like 4 jobs at the same time, and now I'm down to just Eve and and my regular job. So not having anything else to do is one of the reasons why the guys were like, "You should run for CSM." I didn't say no. I don't have time because I have plenty of time. I got rid of everything else that I was doing.
Yeah. Well, glad to see you put priorities right. I'm glad to see she's fine. Gonna be fine.
Yeah, it was tough there for a bit, but
It's
we
not
beat
an
it.
easy process either way.
Nope.
Well, and it is a good year to run. I believe Pro God was saying that this is probably the best year to run.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised. I mean, I said this before, I said on the show, it seems like there's not as much active campaigning as I remember from past years, you
Yeah.
know? I don't know why that is or what the issue is, but
Well, it's
we'll get
changed.
more into it in the next
Uh,
weeks or 2.
the timetable's changed. There used to be a lot of hype going into FanFest, right?
Mhm.
Because people are getting psyched, so it feels. I don't know. I wonder if the incentive of being announced on screen was a big deal. Like, I wonder if that took some energy out of it,
Uh,
or or it's just that there's only one program that's covering it. I think Mind Clash had people on.
yeah, it's really just been, I think of talking stations as us, but it's been like us and them, and that's it.
Yeah, we haven't done anything official. I mean, we did one recording, but we haven't released it yet. We have 4 people who are scheduled to do interviews with like 6, 7 people each, or at least to ask them if they're willing. They're supposed to record them, send them to me. I'm supposed to cut them up and put them out. And like, there's been no traction on that, both on my part and the part of the people who are busy right now and can't really focus on it. So what I
Well,
may do is do this for the next week or two and just give people 20 minutes to like, yeah, tell me what your deal's about. That's what I did last year, and I was able to crank out like 28 interviews
that's pretty good.
in 7 days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good because I had graphics and I switched all the graphics, so I'm doing that too. I should probably be doing that instead of writing workshops, but whatever.
This is a pretty long article. You did pretty well.
This is not even started. Like, this is all like preamble. Is that the right
Wow.
word? Yeah, but it starts out okay. So we're talking about the last show. You were on the last show, so you'll understand what this was about.
Hmm.
And we're talking about best coming into PL. Now, the crux of the article is it's interesting because PL has a choice to make whether to defend Providence and the treasure that they're going to get if they stay long enough,
Hmm.
or to be participatory in the North, where Guardians may or may not need help just defending Goonswarm. Because they're split up that way, right?
Right.
The heavy equipment's up in the north. You're not going to move that down south to protect Providence, and I think that's what Test ultimately decided. It's like, we can beat their dread bombs, we can't beat their super capitals, but their super capitals are not here. And even if we force the issue, because there's pressure being put on them in the north, they're not going to bring those down. First of all,
Hmm.
it's a long way to go. I'm not sure it's an exciting fight to go all the way down to Providence with super capitals from the north. It just seems like, even with fatigue change, like something that most guys wouldn't want to do. So, say something if you were.
Well, I was thinking, this whole thing with PL sucks and they're a shadow of their former selves and everything like that. I don't buy it. I mean, people just don't stop being good at this game because they get bored with it. And I've been in a number of fleets fighting them, and I have not seen a noticeable decrease in the number of those guys that are showing up. They're getting numbers in their fleets. I mean, same with GOTG. It's not like they're not able to field, anything.
You're talking about
So
GOTG showing up or
I'm
PL
talking about
showing up?
PL. I think if anything, I mean, here's the thing. NC Dot's Superfleet is in the north. They drop all the time. They dropped on us today, and they're basically providing a lot of the backup to GOTG. I don't think PL needs to be up north to help GOTG at all. I think NC Dot's got that covered. So
Yep.
I'm betting that a lot of this is a feint, and the whole idea of let Test move all their stuff here, let them, let's start evacing, and really it's really just a kind of a rabbit in the briar patch thing, like, oh no, we're going to leave because we don't want you guys to be here, and then they're going to drop the hammer. you know
What's the hammer down?
I'm betting I bet they move their super cap fleet. I
You
really
think
do.
so?
I
Oh,
bet they do it. I mean, why not? I mean, at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about Tenal. They don't have to worry about Venal or Tribute. They've got that covered. NC Dot's going to cover Pure Blind and Cloud Ring for GOTG. We're not anywhere close to Fade or Declan, so it's not like they have to worry about that. So what else is there to do? I mean, are they really going to spend all the time? fighting CVA and pushing them out and then just let it go. I don't see it. I think a lot of this is going to end up being, you know, clever girl type stuff. But we'll see.
Well, I wouldn't count out their resolve, but I just don't think that it's appealing to super capital
That's true.
people, right?
I guess they are.
Might be from.
I didn't realize we were all like live and shit. That's great.
Okay, from this. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Producer search is going well. We've decided we're going to basically close the producer search. And this week we're forming a group of them. There's about 6. Put them in the same group. Let them work together for a couple weeks and see what they do. And we'll pick somebody out of that. Seems very to work well in a group and also to chase down content, produce. Probably, sir, Abby.
Abby, I am also a writer, but I'm not writing now. But I do write. I have written for a living.
Well, my audio is messed up. Boy, we could have saved a lot of problems earlier. No, Ben, that's it. Good. Can you talk so I can see your level?
Hopefully this is okay because I'm on my headset, not on my good thing, so I don't know if it's.
No, it's good. It's me that's low. I could crank it a bit.
I don't like to wear the headset when I'm doing interviews. I try to make it look more professional, so I wear my TV ear thing and use
Yeah,
my podcast microphone.
I want a den like yours, so that I don't have to share it with a TV room. You know, so it looks like more of a adult thing. I will next year. Next year there'll be a renovation at the house that'll allow that.
Well, we moved into this house, I guess, 3 years ago, and my only rule was I need an office. I cannot not have an office because my old office in our old house was in the basement, and it was basically my office and the TV room with all the TV and computer and everything and video games and stuff down there. So Nick wasn't old enough to really. He was 3 or 4 back then, but I could tell it was going to be a pain in the ass if I didn't have my own room. So we got the new house, and I got my own space. It's nice.
Hey. All right, so good for writers' dens, and I'm glad to hear you're an editor. That actually makes it more applicable. Anybody is welcome to join us. If you saw the link, there's a link there for the video chat, which will put you in here. You can put your video on if you want. You can leave it off, but you can talk to us. And it's an open workshop. We're going to finish an article that started 2 days ago, not last week, a couple days ago. And then once it's this one here on test versus PL and Providence. It's basically based on the last show that we had at documentation. So the idea is to bring everybody up to speed. That we want to possibly have more types of content on Talking in Stations, and that means creating something of a news channel. But how it's going to take form, we don't know. Best way is to always expand what's going well. We have a show that's going well, but expand it and take some of the people that appear on the show and have them write something, or I write a summary of what was on the show, but not just saying what was on the show, but giving the show more context. It's almost like Cliff Notes. So that if you didn't quite understand what was being said, you could read an article, then watch the show, and then understand what all that was about. So we deconstruct it. That's the idea, is to grow out of your strengths. And so we'll do that. And if it comes, I've had some interest from notable players. I won't say who they are yet in case they back out and don't want to do it. But some players whose names you'll recognize who want to write. They don't necessarily want to write for INN, fine. But they will write for TIS. That's fine too. And so we'll take those. Of course, we want to hear their voices. So this is also an experiment that I've always wanted to do. I'm glad I'm finally doing it. It's just a little scary to do this kind of thing because it's like watching water boil for people. It could be really boring, but could be really interesting because what I'm going to do is write And that's not the part that you're here to watch, but it's like, where do I go for facts? Where do I go to confirm stories? Where do I go to make graphics? And all that is going to be shown here so that when you decide that you're ready to write, you'll know where to go get information on things, and how to find people, how to find history, how to put histories together, and how to make things correct. So hopefully that's really what I always wanted to do, is show people how to write so that they could write themselves, instead of just thinking like, I don't know where all the stuff is. I wouldn't know if that's true or not. I don't know the history of that. I couldn't talk about it with much authority. Like, we want to get you past all that so you can actually write. And then write wherever you want. Okay, so there was it. Let's see. Okay, so it's really cool you guys are writing notes. I did not expect that, and I'm glad you are. If you want to participate like that and write notes, great. If you want to jump in here and talk to us, that's great too. Either way. And if you want to just lurk, that's fine. So here we go. Test versus PL in Providence 2008. We just did a show on that. We had, this is, I think, very interesting. We had part PL, we had Elise, and we had part Test, who is the Pro God Legend, who is the campaign commander. And so you had both sides. And at the same time, you had this other guest, this Harvey Skywalker, but I don't want to say it like that. I'm all tongue twisted. Skywalker. Harvey is in PL, but he was, not long ago, he was in Test. Sorry, he was in The Culture.
The Culture.
Yeah, I think he was in Black Legion before that. Yeah, and so this guy, he was a leader of The Culture, and The Culture lived in Fountain, which you can see here.
And we love The Culture because they gave us all that space.
Yeah, exactly. So The Culture did something a while back that people didn't really take much note of. Interestingly, I was with Matani when that deal was being made. I was not privy to any of the information except that something was happening and that they were, something was in the works. It turned out to be a giant sale, I think for not very much.
I don't think we gave him a whole hell of a lot of money.
I think it was, I don't want to guess, but I was going to say 60 billion, or was it much? No, it couldn't have been. Well, maybe it was 60 billion.
I forget. It was something in that area, but I mean, what they ended up giving us, I mean, they gave us keep stars and all kinds of stuff. It's surprising.
Yeah, they had a keep star on the border of Fountain, but really what that did, it was only offered to Delve, Goonswarm. It was not offered to the north. Harvey was on, I believe it was either Talking in Stations or it was the commentary to the Battle of Nine Tac 4. I believe it was in Talking in Stations, and Killer B was saying, hey, man, why didn't you offer it to us? We might have bought it. And Harvey said, well, I didn't think you guys would buy it. So anyway, but Matani did buy it, and that allowed this corridor to open up. So you have goons that are down here. Actually, I'll show you on this article they wrote because I made the illustration based on this map. Goons and Imperium are down here, and they can go up through Fountain all the way up to this outer ring border. And that there's a lot of space that they can contest there, which they did against, actually not Outer Ring, but Cloud Ring for both those. It was Cloud Ring. But that is a 10-minute corridor, which means, and this shocked me, but they could get their supers all the way from their home port in their home station, basically, all the way up there to a forward operating position in 10 minutes. I believe it was 9 minutes. Of course, they'd probably have to cool down and rest. But once you could do that, you're within striking distance of Cloud Ring. You can imagine,
and we got to keep stars the entire route.
You do now. You didn't at the time. You only had one.
That's correct.
But now you fortified that. So you had 10-minute travel time without keep stars. And now it's a very secure route. So that to me was like a huge thing that doesn't really get talked about that much. And this is why you have a lot of things going on in the north, because now you have people that are going up there to have some fun, and they can totally reinforce success. If they're having some success, they can get their numbers up there much quicker than I believe Pandemic Legion can, say, bring their supers down. Or it's much safer for them to go up than it is for PL or NC to come down, which is a big deal. It's kind of led to what this situation is. All right. So we kind of like did that. Oh, cool. Who's that?
Opus.
Opus. So we talked about that. We went into PL takes Providence because PL, with the help of honorable third party, which is these hot droppers that always are beating up Providence, at least for the last few years, and NC, of course, kind of helped take Providence, and that campaign went pretty fast. There wasn't, at a certain point, there wasn't much resistance left. They did put up a fight for a few fights, and then it just kind of collapsed after that, and it was a cleanup fight. But CVA is still active in that area, and CVA is part of Providence block. Okay, so that happened, and then Imperium menaces the north. What was interesting was when this corridor opened, Test had a keep star. No, not Test. Horde had a keep star that they put out as a forward operating base into Outer Ring, I believe, which was in 9 Tech 4. Well, let's see where 9 Tech 4 is, because I'm not exactly sure if it's Outer or Cloud Ring. But it is in the north.
Cloud Ring, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, you can see. So we use eve.land maps, check that kind of information out, and it's Cloud Ring. So I think it's on the border of Cloud Ring. Well, let's look at where 9 Tech 4 is. No, it's in the southern. It's on the northern border of it, so it's not close at all to.
Well, it's closer to Pureblind, but.
Well, yeah, but that's on the north side. So basically, you have goons came all the way up to Outer Ringish area, and were able to get into 9 Tech 4 relatively easy. It took them a day to rest. They had plenty of time. And this was, the North saw those movements and said, we got to stop them. We got to put everything on that border because they're going to take out a keep star. The keep star didn't mean anything. This was a test. This was a test to see what kind of strength the North had. So the North had to show up, and they did. And so you had a Guinness Book of World Record fight, and that was 9 Tech 4. I think we streamed it live for 6 hours, 7 hours.
That was a fun fight, although I sat on the loading screen for I had one dread in system, and then my other dread crashed, and I sat on the loading screen trying to get in for 6 hours.
Yeah, that was another 4,000 people's experience as well, because only 6,000 got in. So we can pretty much confirm there were over 10,000 people involved in that fight. They wouldn't give us an exact number, but Fozzie pretty much gave us a head nod when we asked. And about 6,200, a little less, got into that fight, brawled it out in a very, very slow motion. 6,000 got in, but the servers were kicking people out left and right. And so it got down to about 4,000 before the fight kind of took its form, and it was a stalemate. And so then you had Goon Swarm kind of going back south, and you had Horde kind of try to undock or try to unanchor that keep star because they didn't need it there. It was a forward operating base put in by some corporation, but it wasn't really a strategic. It had strategic value before, but at that point it was a liability because it was way out in a place where it was pulling the entire north very far west. Let me just point at the map right because I got this all on video. And I'm not going to record this. This is not going to be played on audio. See, the north is over here in the middle, and for them to be fighting in Cloud Ring pulls them pretty far off. They don't want to be there if they don't have to for too long. And so Horde tried to unanchor that, and it's funny because to unanchor it, can't have hostiles hitting it, and so Goonswarm really punished them by keeping it anchored, by constantly attacking it. It was kind of an interesting tactic.
We did that with MC until they finally was able to unanchor the thing, but then forgot that they did it, and
that's right. And you blew it up.
Blew it up in the freighter.
Oh wow,
that was freaking awesome.
That was right before. That was the day of, or right before Vegas. And they did unanchor it.
Where's my keep star?
They did unanchor it and then put it in a freighter and immediately got it blown up. Oh,
the easiest keep star kill we ever got.
Again, that was another corporation that kind of did it on their own too. It wasn't really part of MC's plan to have it there. At least that's what they said. So
I'm sure that's what they said.
Yeah, all that to say that's kind of leads up to what's going on here. where you have the North being pummeled by the South, and the North is putting up a fight, and they're having success. So it's a stale, it's going back and forth. At the same time that PL is sitting on a big egg called Providence, because in 3 weeks, that's going to be worth many, many billions, maybe trillions. And Test decides, well, PL then attacks Test just for some content, since Providence is no longer really fighting. And they're attacking with Fraternity, and Fraternity is not really able to match them on their time zone, but it's not a very good war, because basically Fraternity is Russian time zone, which means they can only play at a certain hour, which is not the same time as the US plays. It's the exact opposite time.
Right.
And so you really have a war that's not going anywhere, just kind of, I don't know, not doing well. And PL can't turn the tide, and normally PL could turn the tide. PL is who you used to hire if you wanted to move into sovereignty, and you needed somebody moved out of the way. PL is who you hired to move them out of the way. They did all the big, heavy work, so your subcap fleet could come in and kind of, do some of the fleet fighting, but to remove all the towers and stuff like that would take hours unless you had capital ships. And PL could guarantee that they could take out those towers for you.
Well, they had the assets. I mean, you want to go in and you have to kill 100 towers. You need guys with enough ships to do it. That was
Yeah.
them.
Now they have the skill, just not the numbers.
Exactly.
So, but PL couldn't turn the tide for Fraternity, so that didn't really go anywhere. And then Test decides they're going to go into Providence because they want that egg. And so there's going to be a fight over that egg of Providence. You can see down here.
I seem to recall PL went into Providence right after the original announcement was made about the switching over of the faction forward as ours. Because I seem to remember thinking, all right, well, obviously they're going to try to grab Provi because of all those NPC stations that are going to flip. And then it took like 9 months before anything actually happened. Oh, and Bleezer's point about Frat, I agree, is they're going to be pretty good in about a year.
Well, I think part of the reason why PL and even NC Dot went out that way was because we just got finished fighting Initiative? Was it Initiative up in their space? It's not Initiative, was it? Was Initiative who we kicked out Matterall?
Out of where?
When I first joined, out of their space, I can't think of where they were.
Yeah, it was Initiative and Syndicate.
We got kicked out.
Syndicate. Right, you get kicked out, and then we needed more content, so we went down to Gehi and just shoot Brave and all that out that way. And Providence was part of that, but I don't think originally I don't think it was part of that point to actually kick anybody out of their space. At least not for NC Dot.
Yeah, because you guys never held it. It's just MC was there, next door in FD, but it ended up as soon as you guys left, and then the R64 stuff started changing, so we came back and took everything again. Then you guys came back and started fighting. We went back and forth a bunch of times in Syndicate.
Yeah, we got tricked.
Just gave up because what's the point now?
Yeah, I know, right?
I believe we got tricked because the Goon Swarm and Test.
Right.
The
Yes.
Goon Swarm and Test both attacked the North at the same time. Well, actually, Test was attacking Darkness. And in doing so, God, there's more stuff for the article, right? But it starts to get too deep. So I'll probably have to write all this stuff out or not write it at all. But Test attacks Darkness. And in the process, Goons bring up a bunch of dreads too, and they're going to help by disrupting the resistance that NC and PL would support Darkness with. And all that goes pretty bad, except for one thing. We got really duped or tricked, and you guys were able to kill our staging Fortizar on the way out to Syndicate. And so you were able to undo the stuff that we had done in the month before. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, because Test was able to get that far north, they went through DRF regions to do that, right? And so Darkness then said, okay, well, we're going to attack DRF. And so they put a Keep Star, they anchored a Keep Star in DRF territory, which was a huge fight. And against the odds, DRF was able to destroy it. And then Darkness did a little bit of damage in the area before they basically said, we're done, we're out of here. And took off, went back north. So interesting, that was retaliation for letting Test come up that far north. So, interestingly, I don't know about this, and I need to find out. I think I wrote down my notes. I need to find this out. But during 9TAC4, Test did not help Goon Swarm in the north. Test stayed out of it.
Yeah, I don't remember them third partying that one.
They didn't even show up. I don't believe.
They didn't show up. They didn't do anything.
Nope.
But what they did do, either the day before or during that build up, that whole week was a building up of, assets. So it's not just one battle. It was like a week of getting armaments into place and stuff like that. But in that time period, maybe right before 9TAC4 actually happened, Test put down a Fortizar in a contested area against Goonswarm. Remember, there was a lot of tension about that on air.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you know what that was? Does anybody?
I'm trying to remember, but this was like last year, right? February.
Yeah, and it wasn't. They were talking cryptically, so I didn't. It wasn't out in the open what that was about.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember what the.
I can't remember.
I don't know if they even
like
came out
bait.
and said what it was. Was it?
I don't know,
Oh,
but
it
it
was
got
bait.
settled. I think it got settled. As you can see, Bleezy123 here says they made up. And I think they did make up to a certain degree because they're not as hostile as they were. But Goonswarm definitely threatened Test. They did it live on air. It was kind of funny to watch. And if you want to see
at that
that,
point, Tess was trying to figure out what they wanted to do because they had gotten the DRF thing didn't go anywhere, and they're stuck in catch and impasse. So what do they want to do? And I think they were trying to make noises, and I think that was Goon's way of saying, "Hey, go where you want, just don't come over here."
yeah. So, yeah, basically, they probably made up for that or decided not to be antagonistic towards each other because they're not really interfering with one another. But it's an interesting play. I think that Tess jumps into Providence because it kind of forces an issue. What's PL going to do? PL, as you can see by what Elise said on the show, welcomes that. They love the idea of people fighting them. PL did move in at this was interesting. I didn't know it until the show aired, but that the faction Fortizards showed up on the test servers as PL was moving in. And I did not know that timing. So they didn't move in right after it was announced that there would be Fortizards. They moved in at a time when the Fortizards were actually showing up on test servers. So people thought, hey, they had inside information that it was going to happen soon. We can see that it's going to happen soon because they're on the test server. PL's cheating. And I don't think that's the case.
What else is new?
Well, I don't think that's the case because as you can
see, I mean, where are they going to get the info from? Talking to
Manny.
What would CCP tell them?
Manfred Sidious was on CSM, and apparently he leaked the Titan information to somebody. Don't even know who. Might have been outside of PL, not actually inside of PL. So there's that specter that sits above PL's head. But if you look here under announcements,
that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We have in this article, we'll have a link to this. Let's turn it on and play it.
For faction citadels and outpost replacement. This is something.
And that is FanFest when they're talking about. Sorry, is it FanFest? It is FanFest when they're talking about. I think it's FanFest.
No, it's Vegas. You said.
It's Vegas, 2017. That's funny.
I'm pointing like you can see me.
I can see you.
Well, I know you can see me, but you can't see where I'm pointing. That way.
Yeah. So we have the link where it's announced. Okay, so that's eVegas 2017. Basically, he says there it's going to happen in the spring or early summer. And so if you're just going by what CCP's saying, it was a good time to move in. So I don't think that there was any insider information. I think people, I don't know though, because there's a lot of winking and smiling that goes on in conversations.
Maybe Brisk can roll back the curtain for us one day.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll find out. I'll find the truth.
Have you promised, crap? What's that? All politicians try to promise you?
Quid pro quo.
No, I meant like.
I promise everybody everything they ask me.
Oh, I bet you do.
I do. Can we fix this? I'll take care of it. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, I mean, glass window, full visibility, or whatever it's called.
Oh, transparency.
There we go, transparency.
I probably should. I should probably promise that.
You should. Well,
I promise everything else.
up and
Exactly. I will tell you what's happening. Maybe.
So this is the article that is formed up again to support the show, to give more context to what's going on there. And as I was writing it, I'm finding out I forgot a lot of stuff, or don't remember, or which is the same thing, or I never knew it. And that is stuff like, when did Horde leave? So I'll need to
germinate.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So when I need to know something like that, there's two ways to look up history. One is great.
Well, Dotland, right?
Yeah, well, Dotland will tell you when stations were actually given up and abandoned and stuff like that. So if we go to Fade, because they jumped, no, out of Pureblind, right? Is that where they left?
Yeah, they were in Pureblind.
So I would just pick a key station. You can find a key station by jumps. So I'll find jumps. That looks like an important station. No station there, but I can check their events. No. Notes. Feed. It's feed. No, it's not feed. Okay, it must be statistic. Oh. Station? You find the SOV. This.
What are you trying to find again?
Trying to find the when the SOV was taken, the sovereignty of this.
Yeah, that'll be the overview, right? Is it overview? Or is that events?
Nah, I thought it was events too. There's no events here. Okay, so let's first of all, let's pick a better station.
Oh wait, that's SOE though. That you won't. That's you
Yeah,
can't
that's
take that.
NPC stage.
Yeah, you can't do that. That's why you don't see it. It should be in the bottom.
Oh, I
Station
didn't even
outpost.
notice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Choose something else.
let's try that again. Okay, how not to do things. First of all, maybe you want to look up sovereignty, just to be
Madeline
sure.
doesn't really play the game. He just talks about Eve all day.
Oh, I see. Yes, NPC space inside of SOV space. So
there you go.
Stop here first. Say, okay, make sure you're in a place that can actually be taken over.
FTAC-N is probably one of the systems I would look at.
FTAC and side of Pureblind. Go to that system. Yeah. And in doing so, we can see how things get traded off throughout history. And this goes all the way back to 2007. So if you ever want to see when somebody left, this is a good way to do it. And so what we're looking for in this case is Pandemic Horde used to live here, and then they gave it up. But I don't know who French Connection is, so let's check.
They are still there now. We fight them all the time.
So
because they're a smaller, I mean, they're French, obviously. I don't think they're renters of anybody's. I think they just happen to have the space.
Well, let's say you're a writer and you find out, okay, so basically I can answer my own question here. Pandemic pretty much traded it or gave it to, it looks like, this French group. It's still there. Basically at the beginning of March. So Horde leaves in March, February, March. So I answered my question. Now I know that Horde left March. I knew it happened, but I didn't know when. And that's how you do it. You can go to Dotland and find out when the sovereignty actually. Furthermore, this gives me a date to do Google searches. So I can actually say Horde leaves Pureblind. And Google will probably figure out that that's Eve related. So here's some stuff. But if I want to zero in on something historic, I would open up tools and choose a time and choose a custom range and basically say, I really want it within this week because I want the freshest information for what was happening at the time. And so I'll pick 3, actually I'll pick 2, 15, 18. So that's February 15th. And I'll just probably do a month. And so I'll move that to March 15th. So I know that SOV actually flipped right in the middle of those 2 dates. So this will go, 15 days, 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after. And then it gives me another list, and you can see it's a different list. This is not the stuff that is the first stuff to show up on Google, but this is probably the better stuff. So you want to zero in on those dates. And yeah, INN has information, so they're kind of a public record place, which is good, and they're being pretty comprehensive, so you can see where things happen. But what I really like to do when I'm trying to figure out what the reasons were, what the narratives were. In this case, I'm not so much because it's not the focus of the story, but I like reading certain people. And Ancient Gaming Noob is one of my favorite writers. He has a very personal view, so you can really see what's going on from a certain perspective. So you can check it out that way. See if there's something else here. Much. So I would read this as reference material. Again, you could also use that date to look up the article on Imperium News. I would cross-reference it with EN24. And Crossing Zebras doesn't really do that kind of stuff. If they did, it's more like what I'm doing, which is a comprehensive explanation of what happened. The best place is Reddit, really, because that's where you see a lot of the give and take, and a lot of that's crap. If you can read it all and understand it, which is a trick, it gives you a flavor of the context of what the narratives were that were competing and where the truth is and all that stuff. That's if you're doing.
French Connection was that young.
Yeah, me neither.
That's what gives you the. That's what allows you to like not overstate a position, which is very important to writing. A lot of writers who have opinions want to give those opinions, and an article really isn't about your opinion. It's about what actually happened. And then it's about your analysis of what actually happened. No, there's not really, I don't consider analysis opinion. I consider analysis looking at something and trying to figure out what the motivations were of the people that were engaged in it. It's not to assign who was right and who was wrong. It's not to assign what was good and what was bad. And that makes the difference between at least the way that I write and the way that people who just want to have fun and throw shade or get some aggression out. That's definitely a legit style of writing, but you're really only ever going to play to your fans that way. So if you write down the middle and you write from both sides and you write about motivations rather than assigning your own values, that's a much better way to write because you can open up your writing to many more people. Even people who don't like me will read what I write for that reason.
Wait, people don't like you, Matterall?
There's one or two. They don't know me. Is that right?
They need the medal, Friends of Matterall.
Right, they need that.
Yeah,
I want that too.
So as Bleezy123 says in comments, that move changed some things, and it certainly did.
Yes.
Because Horde was a group that would fight, and win or not, they would fight. In some ways, that
buffer between the Imperium and GOTG.
In some ways, that encourages people to stick around too. So, Guardians of the Galaxy decided a different tactic, which was starve them out, don't fight, and that's what got ridiculed on Reddit, which is a psychological tactic. Because if you're gonna, what you're trying to do is draw out an enemy to fight, because that keeps your guys, if you're winning your fights especially, because you're breaking their morale and you're making them, you're giving your guys a morale boost when your guys are winning. You want to keep that going as long as possible. If they decide our morale is breaking, we need to stop fighting, we need to starve them or win the fights, which is the blob them or blue balls. That's a strategy that you don't want to be used against you. Goons use it all the time against everybody. So what you do is you go to Reddit and you try to shame them into fighting. And that's one of the psychological tactics that's used when people are actually. Okay, so where's that put us? So finding out that Horde left in March, that creates a big problem. Let's see, Imperium marches to the north, but I'm setting the stage for why that happens, and I talk about Harvey Skywalker selling Fountain, and I put it on him, but it was really his group, but I think he made the decision. And here's the thing that really pissed off, and again, there's sometimes I actually get, it's very rare, but sometimes I get to actually see firsthand people's reactions to things. So then I can say that's a fact because I saw it. And one of those reactions was seeing that Matani legit got pissed off at the crap Pro God was writing to hype up the $1 million fight, because he says $1 million fight. And in the process of putting that up, he basically went back to what he terms World War B, and how World War B happened because Matani was a big jerk, and he just opened that wound up.
I'm rolling my eyes.
He just opened that wound up and to really, really like sell that article, and it worked. I believe it got something like 70,000 views, like within the first hour or two, or something like that. It's some extraordinary amount of visibility, and on Reddit, that's like fuel. And so that thing propelled way up at the top, not just on Eve, but I mean all the way on the actual Reddit board and stuff. It went up there. $1 million fight in a video game. Who's not going to read that doesn't even know anything about Eve Online? And sure enough, ProGod got a call while he and I were talking. And the call was from Canadian Broadcast Network. And they said, hey, do you want to be on? And so he had to go do this interview in the middle of that. And so he did. But that was part of like, hey, why are you shooting at me kind of thing. And then Test went ahead and put down some kind of a Fortizar in the wrong place, and that created a lot of tension. And that's what I'm writing about here. So during the fight, I say, because I think it was during the fight, Test put down, or they anchored a Fortizar in a place they weren't supposed to do it. And Aerith and Matani called on air. We were broadcasting 9TAC4, and it was pretty much the last 2 hours. You can hear it on the broadcast. It's recorded live on. It was recorded live, and it's on Talking in Stations. So I released it as a podcast. It's a 5-episode thing, so probably the second and the last one, part 4. And you can see Aerith really going after Vili. I mean, really going after him. Then Matani gets on too and says some things too, and Vili's kind of trying to like keep it cool. And then they go off and they fix it. Matani may have said, as Bleezy says here, Matani actually said he was wrong to let his pride get in the way of the Imperium interests, because that's why relationships were testy with Test. And that's partially, that's definitely partially true. Whether he apologized or not, I don't know, but I do know that he was aggravated, and I do know that Fortizar being in a certain place also caused a rift, which is interesting because if Test and Goonswarm are fighting together, they can possibly overcome NC and PL, because you saw there was a stalemate when it was just Goonswarm against NCPL and Darkness. If you throw Test on the side of Goonswarm, that looks like that's a bigger advantage. Unfortunately, that fight can never happen because 10,000 people can't fit into a system. So right now, that's not a real issue with everybody amassing at the same place. But, and this is where the article gets interesting, is that is an issue if you split up warfare. So now you have Goons fighting in the north, and you have Test going into Providence. And you can see what a two-front war looks like if those two guys are allies. They're not. They haven't said they are. But it's interesting to see, like, okay, we can't put 10,000 people into one system. Let's split them up across the board. And that's why I think this is an interesting fight. The power blocks, lazy. This is turning into a little information session, which I like. Okay, so Horde leaves in March. Why is that important, guys?
Well, with them gone, that leaves GOTG's backside open for people coming to fuck with them.
And basically shows how much work Horde was actually doing.
Well,
which was a ton.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing with Horde was Darkness always had time with Horde in the middle there, because anybody who wants to roam up through their space is going to get hit by a bunch of freaking horde lights coming out to fight them. By the time that they're not going to go any. Why would you got your fight already? Without them there, then it's like the soft underbelly has been opened, and it's easy to just pop right up. Plus, with the empty space there, of course, somebody's going to look and say, "Hey, well, that's not bad space."
If you
Oh,
actually
hold on.
start
I have to.
looking at
I have to take a break. You guys can keep talking, but hold on for 1 second for me.
if you actually look at Dotland and kill boards and stuff, once horde Yep,
No worries.
we'll keep talking. All right, he's muted now.
There you go.
You actually look on Dotland, you look at kill boards. Like the moment horde moves out, you can tell that GOTG starts to like gets ransacked at that point.
Oh yeah, that's when all of the really bad dunking started happening. And that's when I think the feeding frenzy started because we're like, oh wow, these guys are not fighting back very well. Let's go and take some more fights up there.
I think this is a case where we always picked on goons, right? They got soft, before Casino World War B, and this is, I think, what happens. I think GOTG is kind of in the same boat. They kind of got used to having a meat shield of some sort up there. They realized that they thought they were safer than they thought, and they thought they were stronger than they thought,
Right.
and it clearly showed that. I think Alliance leaders' biggest fear is that they're weaker than they thought they were.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that can happen is when a PvP alliance shifts from being in PvP mode to crabbing mode. Because at least in
Yeah,
my experience, once the crabs are out, they really don't want to do anything but that, and they get really pissy when they have to start defending Sob and going up and doing other things. I mean, that was one of the reasons I'm happy that we're at Aquarius right now, is because all of the mining drama and the ratting drama and the stupid bullshit is all gone. We're just fighting. And because I can't, that's the worst. The worst part is when people are arguing over fucking money. It's awful. But I think
yeah,
GOTG's problem was that they weren't fighting all the time. So all their guys were just crabbing. They had all of pure blind. They had all of the space behind it up at Declan and everywhere else that was protected that nobody could get to, so they could do whatever they wanted. Now they have to fight.
yeah, totally. And I will say, being an NC Dot personally, I do
Be
appreciate
an NC
Vince.
dot.
Wait, what?
Be an NC dot.
I know, right?
You gotta
I
do the
will say,
video.
yeah, I've seen it. One thing I will say that I do appreciate with Vince, even though it's a pain in the butt sometimes, he keeps us driven to stay in combat mode. I mean, we don't have
Yeah.
lots of downtime. We keep ourselves deployed, and as pain in the butt that can be sometimes because it feels like we're always shooting people. It keeps us at least at a sharp edge.
Well,
So I do
you got to, because if you
right,
stop, you know, it's what happens.
right, and I
People
think
get in
that
crabbing mode.
yeah, and I think we've seen this throughout Eve's history, but I think that nothing was bigger than what happened during the World War B, the Casino War. I think that really woke a lot of people up, right? Because we always thought, that the Horn of Gondor, right? We thought, oh, the Horn of NC, the Horn of PL, we can pull in all the numbers we need to if there's a real war. But I think that you got to keep your membership busy and you got to keep them in combat, or you have like, anybody is subject to what happened to, during that time during
It
goons.
it reminds me of, and I'm gonna be a nerd here. It reminds me of back during the Roman the end of the Roman Republic, where you've got Caesar and you got Pompey, and they're fighting with each other. And Pompey seems to think he's got so much more power. I can stomp my feet and legions will emerge, and we'll fight this. We'll fight Caesar's legions, and we'll win, and blah blah blah. And then he had to do it, and it didn't work that way. He
Right,
stomps his feet, and yeah, he got some guys, but he didn't have an army in the field that was like Caesar's, that was tried and tested, and would follow him anywhere. And so he gets his ass kicked. So I think a lot of times people, if they you always end up fighting the last war, and they seem to think, all right, well, we got this last one, we're going to be able to do it again, and things change. You know.
yeah.
So
So
Matterall's going to stomp his feet, and legions of writers are going to appear.
Well, actually, I think since it works at INN, I think that actually that can happen. I got like 4 writers on staff. How many staff members that are writers that INN have? A lot.
it's over probably in the neighborhood of 100 people working at INN.
Well, I'm just talking about
And
writers, though.
Writers is about, I would say like 30.
Jeez.
It's a multi-dollar media.
It's not what it
I know,
sounds.
right?
It's not like everybody's sitting there with a like Clark Kent
Right.
writing stuff. It's more like those are contributors that process minimum, which is 1 article a month. But
That's still at 30 articles, though.
Well, the hard thing for you, Opus, is I mean, at least INN is just news.
Right.
You guys got to be funny. That's hard.
And it
That's
doesn't
hard.
always work. And we only have like at most, I think we ever had is 4 writers at a time. So yeah, it's difficult. Not every article's gonna be funny to everybody too. So I think that's something that
Right.
we keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, each site has their own struggles. I think, But anyway, we won't get off on that. I was just joking with that.
Well,
but yeah,
let me interrupt here. So this is a typical problem that happens when you're writing, and that is it's not important.
Well, I'm gonna listen. I'm just gonna be off.
Yeah, sure. It's not. When you run across a point that's not important to the story that you're trying to get across, but it does need to be said. But it's going to take your time to go research it, like I just showed you. Here's what it says. During the 9 Tech 4 fight, in fact, I should probably put that in there since it hasn't been cited in a while. Test did not support the Imperium, but instead anchored a Fort Azar, and I don't know where, and I don't know why it was contested. So I will just say in a contested area between their coalition and the Imperium, because it was in some area that they were not supposed to be in. So that's vague. It is true, but I'm not wasting a bunch of time trying to be really specific. So we'll leave it at that. And now I can move on to, okay, this put a wedge between Test and the Imperium for a short time. How did it de-escalate? Now, I don't know. It was probably if Bleezy is telling me that Matani said he shouldn't have let his personal anger get in the way of Imperium business. That might have been at what are those called? Fireside chats or something.
Matterall, didn't you say that they were arguing on TIS?
They were, but I moved on to how they put it back together.
Did you link to that video?
No.
I want to link to that video there.
I could make a note to do that. Okay, so I could then say citation video of 9 Tech 4. But now I got to go find that. So that's time.
Work.
Yeah. But I'll just make a note. And the thing is, if I miss this and it goes out published, it'll look really bad. So what I like to do is change the color to red. That way.
Nice. I'm learning some cool tips here.
Yeah. Well, problem is I misspell a lot of stuff. So
that's why I have an editor.
My problem is that when I'm doing this writing, a lot of what I'm doing is it reminds me of law review. And one of the things that they always say in law review is if you ever say anything that needs to be backed up with some reference to something, you got to cite it. So sometimes I get cite happy and I have to stop myself.
Yeah.
But if I'm referring to something that I know I have video or there's some context that can be given by some link that somebody can watch and see more about it, then I like to throw the citation in there.
Yeah, I have that same problem.
It's a pain in the ass.
Everything turns blue, right? Like if we preview this article,
right?
Every other word turns blue. It looks really bad. So you really only want to cite important things. See, even on this, I'll have to change the formatting because the blue on blue isn't working very well. That starts to look like,
So this is just for the synopsis of the actually last week's show. This isn't like an article. It's actually a
yeah. What
recap.
What I've decided to do in order to give more content is to write a contextual article, like a companion article that goes with the show. I was explaining earlier that if I want to grow TIS to do news stuff and hire staff and do all that to do that kind of stuff, it can't just be out of the blue without purpose, because then it'll just be like really doing what INN already does, or competing against EN24 or doing what they already do. And although I think if you have 5 news stations for each, it's no problem. Everybody's going to read them all. Doesn't matter. I think instead of doing that, you should just grow out of your strengths. So our strength is that we have a show where we have guests that are first-person accounts of what's going on, and take what they said and put something around it so people can understand the show better. And do that for a while. See how that goes. And then start bringing in other writers to fill in stuff that's a little more evergreen, like guides. Or, I have some interest from people who have names already out there that are, big names in Eve. So it's nice to see just those guys say something, because usually they got a big name for a reason. They've been around a long time. They know a lot of stuff. They've been at it at a very high level for a long time, and people want to hear from people like that. So the thing is, and this is the good part, is when I have a question, I can reach out and ask people. So I won't say what their answer is necessarily. Need to go to my... When people write me and I'm doing this show, I need to find a way to block. Well, I haven't figured that out yet. Just assume people know I'm on air.
Showing all your
Oh,
awesome
good.
Discord channels you're in.
Yeah, and then what I'll do is the editor for INN ask. We can get to that later. What I do is reach out to somebody. So Billy, for instance, probably not awake. This is something that is hard for a young writer to do. It's easier for a guy that's been around a while to do. But
You gotta have context.
It helps to have context. Say, I'm going to ask him. Okay, actually, I want to ask him 2 questions. So that's my question. I won't show the answer, but it's my question. So the thing is, Discord allows you to communicate with a lot of these guys, and they're very open, a lot of them. And even if you just say, this is so-and-so from INN, you say like, hey, can I ask you a question? And if you're polite and you identify yourself and they know what they're dealing with, they're likely to answer your question. So I encourage you guys that, need to get like a quote to kind of make something true. That's how you get it. You go right to the source, or you look it up, using statistics that are given to you by other people.
Yeah, that jump fighter's not moving tonight. Don't want to pull him out at all.
Just live a little, man.
Yeah, I undocked in a certain system. LoSec system was like, nope.
All right, so I can find that citation. And so what I can also do is, instead of a citation or a quote, so I can paraphrase what I get as a response, and I can send a second question out to ProGod if Philly doesn't write me. But you can write more than one guy, right? Trying to get to the bottom of something, it's fine. These guys are very friendly to make sure that their side of the story is correct. There's really no excuse for getting stuff wrong. These guys are very approachable. So put a wedge between testing for a short time, and then it got resolved. So put that in itself. So Horde, Horde decides, and I believe this is what they said. I can ask Gobbins this too, or somebody from Horde. They needed more space. And they moved to Tribute, which is actually over here.
Well, they moved to Geminate.
Geminate, that's it. I get those confused all the time. That's why I was actually opening the map to make sure I was thinking. Check yourself with a map. So Horde decides to move. Horde decides they needed more space and moved to Geminate, which puts them. I'll use my mouse. So we're talking about fighting in. Right, so they're like three regions over. Now, what's happening here in the previous months is that Horde is doing a lot of the subcap fights, and Guardians of the Galaxies are the ones dropping the caps. So Horde will get into a fight with Goon Swarm in the northern areas as they're skirmishing. This is months before. And Guardians of the Galaxies puts down, or Horde puts down that Keep Star, and that's where Darkness puts the supers. 9-Tech 4 is what I'm talking about. And that's where Darkness puts down supers, and now they have a really big jump range. So now they can kind of clean up any fight that gets started that's going the wrong way. And so that's why the attack on 9-Tech 4 actually happened. So that was a relationship between Horde and Darkness. Darkness was kind of the heavy in that relationship. But now there is no Horde, so that means that Darkness has to dual box, or they have to be the subcap guys, with NC coming in and being the heavy that ends the fight.
Which is what happens.
Which is what happened. Yeah, and Darkness
did. Today.
Darkness losing 5 Titans was a big victory, but it didn't say much about anything strategic, if that's the right way to say it. Like, that was kind of an accident.
It was don't drop your faxes away from the main fleet. Yeah. That's what that was.
It's a little bit of maybe inexperience, or maybe a situation went the wrong way, or they had become accustomed to fighting something a certain way, and in this situation it didn't work because they were trying to save a lone Titan, which makes total sense if you're an FC, because that Titan is going to be a trophy for them, so you don't want them to have it. You try to protect it by dropping your faxes. What they did not know in the north was that Goon Swarm had a lot of dreads. And I think it was quite a surprise and shock that they were able to drop so many dreads that basically multiple, they had more than 5 Titans, wasn't enough to scare off the dread bomb that could be dropped. So that was the mistake.
The benefit was that it was like the week after the changes to jump fatigue, and
right.
For us, we were able to get there with only taking 1 bridge and not having a whole lot of fatigue from our staging in Fountain, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's okay, Blazy, for getting me off topic. It's kind of cool because although it's supposed to be a writer's workshop, I'm trying to interject how you get things done at the same time as rewarding people who are watching with as much information as I can give them. So it's okay. Yeah, so they move away. Puts them 3 regions away. What I want to say here is basically this intensifies. I'm just going to do a first draft type writing, which is just to get it out. I think actually the 5 Titans makes a difference because that's what kind of sent. It was 5 Titans. Did that have anything to do with the rapid turnover of territory?
I think it was demoralizing.
It was the beginning of a whoops, we better pay attention. But it wasn't at the same time as the what looked like a fail cascade, right? During FanFest or post FanFest.
No, I don't think it.
That happened way
if anything,
before.
It might have been part of the momentum that started that.
Good question. So how do we find out when a battle happened? Let's figure this out.
That's a good question. Well,
So
I check Reddit.
Oh, you do. That's a good idea. So we could do it that way, or we could do it through a kill board. What you
Actually,
can?
Yeah. If you, I'll tell you exactly when that battle happened. Look at my kill board. Do brisk.
Look at that, number 3.
There you go. And then
Didn't do
pull up
much.
my losses.
This did not move the needle. Sorry. Do that again. Okay, there it goes. Okay.
And look at my losses.
Losses. Okay. Nice. I think it went to. Okay, so make sure we're on losses. All right, there we go.
Scroll down. There should be a Naglfar, and I lost that at that battle.
This one here,
right there. March. There.
That's awesome. If you're in a battle, that's like awesome. Let's try to lose. It's a bookmark.
I remember I lost the dread in the dread bomb.
I've done that before. I think I did that in BTAC R as well. I just wanted to make sure I marked it, so I got killed. I mean, there's no. Made myself available to be killed. I didn't run away.
It was the first dread I ever bought. That dread's like
so
3 years old.
For those of you that aren't familiar, if you go to this tab here, related, it will show the related kills, and that usually takes you to the sphere of fighting that happened. Looks like it's going to take a while because it's probably a big fight. I hope it is able to.
This was a big fight.
But yeah, so anytime you find a kill mail, you can sometimes do a related look, and that gives you the actual war or the actual battle. This is okay. So it was in ROIR, is where a lot of the fighting was because that was the staging ground for Dunes. Still is. Might have moved it. All right, so now I know a couple of facts, right? First, let me look at that. Yeah, there's a ton of dreads killed on this side. In fact, let's look at that. That was a huge fight. This was a trillion.
I lost 2.
Trillion-esque fight right here. Gigantic, gigantic. And the unreported story is just how many Faxes and dreads got killed in the process.
Yep.
You guys came out ahead, and of course, you would much rather lose dreads than Titans because they're just insured differently, and so you get a lot more money back. Those things are insured. So, although it looks like it's close to a tie, it really wasn't in real world terms because Titans are harder to replace, and they're individual things to replace. So, a guy probably won't get back into a Titan unless he's kind of wealthy. Oh, look, Kenshin lost one. So those are your Titans being lost there. And they dropped a ton of Titans. So for you guys, what happened there? You were there. So what did they drop? Look at all those Titans that got dropped.
It basically was your typical super cap escalation. It started out it was a sub cap fight, and then we heard, all right, there's a potential that these guys are going to drop caps. And if I recall correctly, they were killing something. It was a Fortizar or something. I can't remember. There might be a Fortizar on there, but I don't remember if there is one or not. But there was some reason why everybody was there. And then we got the heads up from Goons to be ready for a cap escalation. So we had prepped everybody and we started moving our assets in. And at some point, they had jumped a bunch of Titans in, and the Titans were away from the main fleet, and the Faxes landed on the other side of the fleet. And then that was the
How many Titans jumped in?
I want to say it was a handful. I mean, I don't think it was a ton, but
it was enough to kind of dissuade a typical dread bomb.
But then, as soon as they realized that the Faxes were being pulled away to go save somebody's Titan that was getting attacked, there were other Titans that were outside of triage range from the Faxes, and that's when the bomb that's when we started jumping in, and that's when the Erebuses that were too far and were not covered by the Fax shields started going down. And I mean, but it escalated from there. I mean, it was more people jumping in as they realized, all right, this is a real thing, and we got a real fight.
So you were able to take out the majority of those 5 before reinforcement Titans were dropped? Because that's a lot of Titans that were dropped.
Yeah, I think most of the reinforcement Titans came in at the end of that, but we had enough dreads on grid to be able to beat it. But the tie-dye got so bad at the end, and I remember my nag dying pretty quickly in the beginning, and I was dual boxing. I had a Rev on the other side, and the Rev was I was trying to get it out of bubbles, and I almost was able to extract, but I died at the very end. I was like in hole right as I was outside the bubble, and I didn't have a chance to jump out. So I know we had more dreads on field than what were killed, but I'm trying to remember because it was a while ago, and I was also really just a line guy trying to make sure I had all my shit together. So yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the rest of the stuff, but
okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
It was fun. We're like, hey, we actually got to do a dread bomb. This is great.
Yeah, and the only point of this really is that it was a wake up call. Like this is they can inflict serious casualties. This is no longer just skirmishing on the North's part. Like they're actually taking out some significant assets. This is before Sob was threatened, and before this is just when you're right, fatigue changes happened, and that's an important point. I think Goons basically took advantage of that right away. They ran a bunch of dreads up there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they were up there before.
We had our dreads up there because
now this is
we were using J5A as the staging.
Look at this. This is the 24th. So we're talking, and when did those changes actually kick in?
That's another thing. We got to look it up.
Okay, so let's look it up. Eve expansions. Eve expansion, there is a Wikipedia here that I like to use, and this helps me time things, like when did changes actually happen. So let's go to Lifeblood, and Lifeblood hits in May. I believe it was part of Lifeblood, or was it just after?
I think it was in the March release, if I remember correctly.
So, but we have, these are expansions.
The original jump fatigue changes, or the changes that reduced it.
The changes that reduced. So another place to go.
I don't think it was in an expansion. I think it was in a monthly release, if I recall correctly.
So patch notes, EVE Online. If you go there, this is where you can really find out what happened, not just the big stuff. It used to be this way. I know they've changed the format. I'm familiar with it. But March. So
yeah, check that out.
Let's see if they put a date on it. So that release is on the 20th. They're talking 4 days afterwards. But let's make sure this is where that happened. My God, get your headlines, your subheaders. This. These are all, you see the 1.17, that means usually they're iterations and fixes to the bigger changes. So sometimes the big change is at the bottom. So yeah, here they are. So patch notes, March 1, released on Tuesday the 20th. So this is the original and everything below. You'll notice there's a ton of fixes to the patch. So you can just skip all that because all that is just fixing and making sure that broken things get worked out. But the real patch is actually at the bottom. And so we'll see what's there. There's ship changes, those. There's chat system change. Yep, probably what a lot of the fixes were about. And we're looking for structures changes. Technical user interface. Huh, this is definitely it. I just can't seem to find it. So we'll do a search.
March 20th, I think it says. Yes, jump fatigue iteration.
So funny, it has such a small header here, but there it is. That's the change that made a difference.
And that's huge.
And that's on the 20th. So here's a series of events now because we used CCP's announcements of when the changes came. We used battle information from Eve Kill and thankfully from Risk's memory to find the battle report. This is going back like 2 months, so it's hard to remember all this stuff. We used some information from Dotlan as to when Horde gave up a station. So all these things combined give you they start to paint the picture. If you remember what happened, you can start to actually paint the picture and make sure that you have things in the right order because the order very much matters because one thing leads to another. So Horde decides, let's see, in March, actually you can't say in March because now all these things happen in March. So now you have to say very specifically in the beginning of March, or I say in early March, Horde decides to leave. Okay, and so then critical jump fatigue changes hit a few weeks later on March 20th, and 4 days after that, Goon Swarm delivers a punishing blow to GOTG, killing 5 Titans in a trillion disc battle. Sounds pretty. And what we can do to let people who want to know more is give them a link to that fight. And really, you just want to select the keyword. So I would say trillion, because you're kind of giving it emphasis, and put the link on that. And you have evidence to support that. You have a timeline, which is correct. And so now what? What's that mean? Well, the losses were a So what's a wake-up call mean? I don't remember what that meant, frankly. I don't think we deployed or did anything like that, but it certainly certainly changed some things because I think Goon Swarm, their morale went up. Said, yeah, let's put more money towards this. Let's.
And I'm gonna go to bed, but this was pretty cool. We should do this again. I liked it.
Well, I probably will. I'll probably have to finish here too because I need to probably finish writing. Or actually, I'll just keep writing. I'll just leave it on and people can watch and ask questions.
I'll catch you tomorrow.
Thanks, man. Thanks for showing up. Helps a lot.
Of course, it was fun.
Oh, my camera's. All right. Get to the point of where I'm trying to go because all this stuff is interesting. Most people already know it. But now this becomes a bit of an archive, which means that if somebody said, like, what was that fight? I know it was in this article. Let me look it up. And then you have this rich context and you have links to other things that will help. We can do. There's other things that we can, cite. Pretty much we can cite when Reddit publicly announces they're leaving in February. Cite that. Stuff like that. And this becomes kind of a repository for other people to do research, right? The next guy that wants to reference this, he can go and look at these pieces and then see the supporting stuff and make a different conclusion or elaborate on the one that was already made. Lizzie, are you a writer too? I'll have to go back. Once I finish putting in this draft kind of stuff, then I'll go back and say what works, what doesn't work, take stuff out, either trim stuff down, which is the better way to go, or elaborate a bit more on something. But it all has to kind of make sense in the flow of things. You don't want to like have this boa constrictor with a giant, meal in the middle of its belly, because as you're going along the story, it stops and really describes this one thing that doesn't have that much to do with it. It won't work. So you want to have all the stuff that you're saying kind of flow one after another. And what's cool is once you get enough information in there and you have like your point A, B, and everything is kind of around the same size, it gives the article a rhythm. And that's really important. It's one of the most important things. It's one of the things I really focus on more than anything else is I like to have the right rhythm. So if you start too dense, it's too much for a person to get through. But if you just start light and then you ramp up the pace, either shorter sentences, less facts, less referenced facts, more explanation or whatever, but whatever, you just make it go faster and faster. It has a nice momentum to it. If you look at some of the articles I've written in the past, they definitely have like a rhythm to it. And then at the end, and I'm not at the end here, but at the end, you want to basically reference the beginning. I love that serpent eating its own tail kind of thing. Because then you feel like you've started somewhere, you've gone somewhere, and you're back home. I really like that. So, okay, so up here, so you're right. I have Imperium menaces the north. So that's just a copy of the one I had up there. get to try to make some progress here. So test fighting PL. Now let me go back and make sure I've got this. Okay, so PL taking Providence. Imperium's menacing the north. And this is probably not test yet. So take this. Probably the next thing I want to say is this is a bit much. Maybe that's the wrong way to put it. But NCPL. And we do leave Providence area. Oh yeah, the reason, Bleezy, you're confused and it's my fault is because they just put all these notes down here. There's definitely a lot of space happening. This is just notes. NC moved to Aquarius to harass Aquarius. Would they do that? An unfortunate blurry. Yeah. That looks fine. I don't know why it's blurry here, but we'll. This is a bit of an overstatement here, but I'll leave it in for now. This is a counterattack for NC to make Goonswarm stay at home more often rather than attack the north. NC is attacking Goonswarm at this point. They were in Providence helping to tame Providence, but they took off. Started attacking Gehi. So actually, let me look up Gehi. What's going on? This is, I'll use Eve Kill for this because it's just the easiest way to see stuff. But I can go to that system. Low sex, it's not going to have any sob changes. There's no point in looking at Dotland for that kind of. And Gehi's probably got lots of cats. Go back about 4 pages. Seven. Here you see some collisions, so they're roll. Yeah, so it's after this, probably around April 20th, start to see NC a lot. That much, a lot of different. Right around April 20th. And now that I have an approximate date, I'll probably check my own character for this, but going to. So here it is. Oh, this is funny. This is conjecture on NC will what PL will. Again, this is a problem, right? Because I'm going to get, when it's an ongoing fight, I'm going to get new stuff. This was 22 hours ago. I can't really use that. I could look in there and see what they're saying so that I could add stuff to the end of the article. I want to do a little more history here. So what I would do is use tools. go to time, custom range, put in April, 22nd ish. Go 18 days or 18 to April. I don't know, 20. Oh. Yeah, this is custom range didn't. I'm gonna do put the year. Do oh, we know it's after that fight on the 24th, so 20. Okay. Widen to let's check. All right, Reddit. I can also do, because I have this, show talking in stations. This helps it's a chronology too. Tend to not cover NC stuff though, so that I don't compromise anything. And here it is. So I know it happened this week. So end of April or mid-April. A few weeks after things are going south. Catch up on this here. You got the SIGs that are active. I have that information too. I guess I could go into that. And that actually is interesting. These show notes are very complete these days, which makes it easy. So we interviewed Siegel. We had 2 shows in one. The first show was Asher. Asher Elias. He walked us through a lot of the stuff, so. There's Black Opera Universe and Space Violence. So the interest groups that are there. That's what he said. Let me just drop that there. I'll come back for that because that probably belongs before all this stuff here. NC leaves Providence area. Two-hour mark. How you guys doing? You tired? That's good advice there. Easy, thanks. That's why every writer needs editors. So 9-tac-4. Let's find easy one to find. It's funny, it was on January 25th, wasn't it? What's interesting is that all the biggest battles in EVE have always been on January 20-something. 27th, I think. Asakai was, a year later BTAC-R was. GP happened a couple days earlier. And Battle of 9-tac-4 was actually January like 20. A couple days off. Because the weekends change it. Or no, because the battles don't always happen a week. So I think that's pretty interesting. It's January, basically. Okay. So what's happened is the Imperium has this corridor they can use to go up into menace the North that was sold to them, which is great for them. And that led to a concentration of effort. That was 9-tac-4. So I need to pick it up there just to finish that off. And that's where this withdrawal happens. But let me put a timeline on that. Sale happened. Oh, I just skimmed over all this. Okay, so that happened during the battle. Due to delve. Allowed special interest groups to venture into the north. I didn't need to say much more than that, but what I do need is so what happened here is I do the skirmishes. You know, Asher has this thing where he says, if you're having fun, don't tell anybody, because as soon as you say, "Hey, we're having fun over here," everybody shows up and ruins it. So they were skirmishing in but not a lot of publicity. But what was different is where the SIGs are only allowed to use certain kinds of ships because they don't want to take heavy losses. They could really only use cruisers. I guess you had Black Ops up there, but mainly cruisers, which means that when caps were dropped, most of the time that was kind of the end of the fight. That was dropped from the north. And the north moved further and further from their home area all the way until to 9TAC 4, put up a keep star, and that way they could drop even further into I guess they could drop into Outer Ring too. So yeah, Fountain Outer Ring's kind of in the middle of these two, but so is Cloud Ring. Cloud Ring, Outer Ring, Syndicate. Those are heavy PvP areas. They always have been, especially Syndicate. So skirmishes generate a lot of activity on both sides. The north sets up. I don't know how to write this. And it's not that important because it doesn't really need to. But this just goes into the dynamics of what SIGs are compared to a full-scale event. And I don't know if that really needs to be made. I'll assume it doesn't. Which generated a lot of activity on both sides. Okay. In a certain way, too much activity for Horde. But I can't say that because I don't know if it's true. They say it's not. They moved because they needed more room. They will not say that they were chased out. If I ask them, they won't. So there's no point in asking that question. Kind of left up to interpretation. It's generated a lot of activity on both sides, but in early March, Horde takes off. Come to your own conclusion. All right. Yeah, so I agree. I don't need to go into much detail there. It really doesn't have much to do except that there is pressure being put on. I think you made that case without having to go into details about how they created pressure. So we'll just leave it there. But NC does deploy to Gehi, and that's essentially a reaction to, losing 5 Titans and then having some Sov flip here and there. I don't know if the Sov flipped. The Sov flipped after NC went to work on Aquarius. So hasn't happened yet. I think that was only a couple weeks ago. And I'll have to look that up, and probably for that it played out in different areas, but do a Reddit search for that kind of thing. Reddit's hard. It's hard to find stuff in Reddit. Nobody ever, when they write headlines, they write to introduce, not to summarize. And so, headlines are crap. It's hard to figure out what they're talking about. They're introducing the topic, which means that they do flowery language, but in retrospect, it's very hard to index. You can't go back and say, like, look what the cat dropped in, or look what the cat dragged in, and figure out what that is without going into it and looking. Instead of saying, darkness saw flips. That's a summary. That's what's good about a newspaper versus Reddit. A newspaper will give you, if it's done right, will give you a summary for a headline. And that's an index. That means you can go through and just go backwards in time and read headline after headline after headline until you find the right article and go into it. And that's what's great about it. The other stuff is entertainment. It's in 1 minute, gone the next. It has no historical value if you can't find it. This is why writers are important. This is why corp writers are important, because they do it on a granular level. Talk about the history of their group. And there used to be a bunch of corp writers, and they're all gone. Or a lot of them are. And so every corporation should have a historian, write it all down, and put it into the public eye so that people can read about what you guys do. Otherwise, nobody will ever care. And see, he did 3M's manpower to stay home and in pure blood. And this isn't really true. I mean, it is true because we're going on the offensive in Aquarius. But NC can very much fight on two fronts. We get CTAs all the time in both areas. And I think NC has a lot of characters, people who can fight on two fronts at the same time. They have 2 subcapital pilots that can fly just about everything. I'm being general, but I think a lot of people are like me. They have multiple characters that can fly just about all the doctrines on a subcap level. So a lot of times, put both those together and you have 2 pilots flying in subcap fleets sometimes. But in a case like this, where you need to split up a north and a south, you can have a subcap pilot north, subcap pilot south. Guys have multiple dread pilots as well. Or if your Titan pilot can climb into a dread temporarily because we have a keep star, you can now get out of your Titan and get into a dread and fight with your Titan pilot in a dread in the north and your dread alt in the south. And so you have that versatility. It's very difficult to finance and to get the skills at that level. But NC is one of those groups that has old players, and that allows them to be able to split up and fight on 2 different fronts with the same veracity as if they were fighting on one, or they're close to it basically. So I honestly don't think NC is struggling to pick one or the other, and I don't know if PL is either. They have the same kind of characters. So that's their advantage now. Like, it used to be that they were the ones in capitals, everybody else in subcapitals. That went away a long time ago. Now it's, you have the escalation path of I have a subcapital, and if that's going sideways, then we bring in capitals, and then super capitals, then we bring in titans, and we could do that because we had 1 of each. And that was, the rich man's game for a while. And now I believe it's having 2 of each and escalate stuff. So it's Eve wealth that generates, and that's what what the alliance pushes towards is to gain every advantage. How is Gehi going? Don't really know. I'm here with you guys, right? No, I can't really play. Gehi is a lot of reinforce cycles, right? Because we have to generate attention. So we're trying to take things down. That's how you get attention. So yeah. Gehi's going. I think it's going well though. There's no complaints. People are having action in just about any time zone, and that's only a good thing for people who actually want to play the game and get in there and get fights and stuff like that. I don't think that attacks on Aquarius can move the needle much in general. There's just so much redundancy there. But you can create enough dissatisfaction that it makes whoever lives in Aquarius have to tell Goonswarm, hey, we need a little more protection than you're allowing. But goons are not shy anyway. They're going to be in that Gehi area anyway, trying to fight or pick off people. Or relieving pressure, maybe. Remember, is the strategy working where if you attack Goonswarm in their home, they won't have the same energy to attack up north? And that's a really tough question to answer, and it really theoretically depends on what NC's motivation levels are, and are they utilizing being able to fight on both fronts at the same time, and how easy is that for them? How many of their guys are showing up? That kind of. And then you compare that with Goonswarm, has a different class of players, been around less time generally because they accept a lot more new players, and they can only fight on one front. And, they have alternate characters or whatever, but that's why you have the SIGs doing their thing because they're kind of a group of experienced people within their SIG. But is that enough to really push over the North? May not be, and so you need the backing of more players. And that group of more players, the reinforcers, that is in question. Like if they need to be in the South, can they be in the North too? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. The Death of Solar, we try to kill Solar. Sort of, not really, but where do you see them going next for content? Well, I know where Winter Coalition is going. I know they're going into to attack DRF in I forget, but it's down there in. Let me look at the map. So I know Winter Coalition is going to take on Solar Fleet basically. They'll be taking them on in I think it's Detroit. I don't know. What's cool is we have the SOV map that so I can see where people are. So I have that on Talking In Stations too. Up here at the top we have SOV maps. So if I click on that, it just gives me all three of them. I'm mostly interested in alliances, not coalitions. This is the real deal, so it takes a second to generate. This thing's huge. Wow, look at Providence. Wow. Something happened today. Huh. Didn't see this. Was this yesterday? 16th. Today. Okay, look. Okay, so I know PL is doing some movements, but what are they doing? They're ceding ground to CVA, it looks like. I'll have to check. Where are you, Solar? Catch. That's where it was, not Detroit, it's Catch. So, Legion of Exdeath is remnants of Solar. Oh, here's Solar. Here's Fraternity. Was it its mother? I thought it was Cash. But right here, if we zoom in to the area, Fraternity is no longer. Fraternity's taking up a lot of space. They're a lot smaller. I think look, they're taking up a lot of space. And they are going to be fighting to their north rather than fighting Test and Legacy over here. They're going to be fighting in this area. Catch, they'll be here. They're well out of the range of Providence. I don't suspect they'll be there. The savior of Provi is not showing up because Test is not in it for Provi. According to their co-campaign commander, Pro God Legend, they're going there to take the stations themselves. So it's either going to be PL or Test that takes those stations, and they may split the difference. Put them besides themselves. CVA has to basically win stations on their own. So CVA may get a chunk, but it's not like Test is coming to actually fight for them. That was made pretty clear. So great conversation in chat. People drop the facts. My favorite things about. When you really meet interesting. Pulling to have a look. I can break this off so I don't. No, you can. Pop out. There it is. All right, let's see. So, okay, so yeah, fraternity's kind of out of it. Time is 20. Ugh. I did not make much ground, but enjoyed talking to you guys. Do you have any questions about writing? No. Yeah, sorry about the inception. It's worse. Mainly trying to make sure that I'm reading what you guys are writing so that I get some information from you guys and you guys get your questions answered and stuff. Fraternity is learning in a certain sense, yes, but they're also very experienced in a different sense. The verdict is out on how good they actually are. They play a different style game. Their guys completely take the economics and empire building out game. They just like to fight. They like to fight fair without a bunch of spies in each other's fleets. It's comp versus comp. It's basically like Alliance tournament every day. We don't fight like that at all. We fight dirty. We fight to win. We fight or we don't fight to win. That would be unheard of for them. I think they play it like a video game, frankly. We play it like it's real life. Big difference. So if they're improving, it's because they're learning how to play dirty. Fraternity Titan. That's sad because they don't have a lot of resources. Well, you don't know if they're the Olympic athletes they're supposed to be because, again, we don't fight the same way. There'd be no way. They do have an FC that got bombed. That was a legit mistake. Should have docked up. Again, they are a little bit behind. I think Fozzie said on the last show he was in the audience that Serenity is in the August build or something. So they're still a few months behind. And they don't they may not have the same changes that we do about tethering and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know if that's an excuse, but you can't judge them on what our standards are. They have a little bit of a feature gap happening if they're new. And so their guys have to acclimate. Yeah, it takes time. I don't think they're idiots. I think they'll be good. I just think that their culture, they've been playing this like a video game, and now they're realizing that, you know, we don't play it like a video game. We struggle like it's real life. Yeah. Where they would do well is a Thunderdome, I think. Prearranged fights. They'd probably do well, but that period has passed. There used to be Thunderdome fights. Happened once, twice. They called fight clubs now, but they used to be called Thunderdome. Delve Thunderdome. LA Segunda versus Test versus Red Alliance. I think when Red Alliance came in, it actually became a war. But that was 2012. Yeah, around then. So that was the first Thunderdome where it was just like, hey, let's just fight, not take solve kind of thing. There had been nips and naps before that on aggression packs, non-invasion packs. But it was kind of a culture of, look how much fun we're having just fighting. Until it got, the local trash talk got too intense, and then they actually broke into a real war, which Test won. LA Segunda got bumped out out of SOV. Red Alliance didn't back them up. AAA didn't back them up. So they just took off. The rest was history. And if you want to know more about that, you guys should see a speech that I gave at Vegas called The Continuum of War. I feel like I'm making this a show about me. It's not really what it's supposed to be about, but I will do this last thing.
At Outer.
So Yeah, so that is here. You guys can check that out. It's the last 5 years of warfare in Eve, but it's not all of it, but it's some of it, a lot of it actually. And I go into Thunderdome, and that leads into the Fountain War and stuff like that. Then we go into Asakai and talk about BTEC-R. We talk about all these things, how they morph one into another, into another. The remnants of solar go over to Red Alliance Dream. No, I don't think so. It's like saying, will all Americans be in the same alliance? It's no. You know, you have that happen. Oh, is it me being idle? Oh, I guess I don't need this anymore. It's true. Bit much. All right, that's for people who want to join me in here. Remnants of Solar will go over to Red Alliance Fleet. Are they still pretty bitter at each other? Yeah, they're bitter at each other. Hell yeah, they fought wars over it in real life. I think one of those groups, I think it was Solar, is more Ukrainian than Russian. And, you know, they don't like each other very much right now. At least some don't. So no, I don't think they'll get back together. Their national identity isn't as transcends. Plus, there's always been kind of a Legion of Death is always kind of farmers, and Solar was always kind of warriors. They even have a different culture. Well, those two groups actually came from the same place. They came from Curse Alliance, and I think they're actually together now. But the Stain guys, those guys are different. I don't know. I really don't know. It's I'm taking a risk talking about Russian politics in the background that Batani does, for instance. Yeah, Solar. I was part of the Dead Zone 9 attack 3 or whatever. Didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't think it was fair. But I think since then they really have Solar before. And if for those that don't know, Solar Fleet was kind of like a CO2 that I really used to like brawl, put up good fights, and there's just a lot of romanticism with Solar and Tap. It's kind of those kinds of FCs. Those are very old school FCs. There are very few of them left. I would say Vince is an FC like that. I would say Gigex was an FC like that. He's kind of not here right now. It's kind of like that. They're brawling FCs. They like to get in there and stuff like that. Yes, a lot of people come in. They get good at this game. Get people to be good around them. They fight, and they fight often. And then they leave the game. Then they go and do something else after 4 or 5 years. It's a long time to play a certain video game. I was just reading an interview with Hilmar, and he's like, when you play Eve, you really don't play much else, you know, kind of play with other games. Even that's a lot to ask for anybody who's, let's say, anywhere from a teenager to a university student to somebody who's getting their career going or whatever, to stay 4 or 5 years in a game. A lot to ask. You always need a new generation. That's why Goonswarm is basically having these tournaments. They want to raise the next generation, get them some experience, and get them in the habit of fighting and not stressing out. And that way you can replenish as people old and stuff. Okay, But that's not much about writing. That's just me. We're in about EVE Online. I'm going to finish the rest of this on my own, but what I'll do is the article isn't the point. The point is to see the techniques that are used to make the article. And so I'll probably talk about Providence getting PL getting it, then Imperium going north and how that splits up, and see to fight in the north and south. And then the big thing is test and PL. Sorry, test. Just put my next two headers down and that'll tell me what I need to get to. So this will be test attacks basically. And then the last thing will be NCPL. Or it's really not about NCPL because they're going to fight on those fronts anyway, I'm pretty sure. But what's interesting is, will Goon Swarm see this as a moment to hit hard? That would be interesting to see. You won't see NCPL split up. That would be a mistake for them to do, because anytime, probably the one thing everybody fears is losing the next BTACR. So what you may have seen during the Casino War is an eagerness for NCPL and test. You saw a huge eagerness to have a next BTACR, a battle that would be definitive for a year. And Goonswarm knew it, so they publicly announced, we are not going to use supers, so don't even think about it. It's not going to happen. We're not going to give you those. And they didn't. And so there was a lot of eagerness. And now the eagerness is still there, but you saw what the results were in 9-Tech 4. It's a stalemate, so you really can't have that fight that way. And we've always planned, you're going to take on goons, you're going to do it on multiple fronts. That's why we were attacking on multiple fronts when we were attacking. We were in Delve, was it? No. We were in Low Sec. So we were in Iridia, and we were attacking Fountain, and we were attacking Delve, I think, at the same time. This idea, this fantasy of multiple fronts. The problem is that BL and NC together could do it. Just wasn't, just not enough people to do two fronts. There is now, I think, might change. Okay, let me read these comments. I'll answer questions and then I'll take off. Hard, brave. This looks like it's for other people, but I don't think you're right. I don't think Imperium is the boogeyman anymore. They certainly took a note from the past. I don't think Matani is out there making big speeches and riling up enemies. I don't think they're, and I actually was a big fan of that. I liked when Matani was giving speeches, and not that he was getting everybody mad. That was a byproduct. I don't care if they do or don't get mad, but I just like the idea of grandeur and, you know, epic narratives. And so he was doing a lot of that, playing into that kind of a role, which led to, you know, resentment and fueled his enemies to kind of like, you know, put their own rivalries behind him, so they could put their own rivalries aside so that they could attack Goonswarm. And that's why you had a concentration of a lot of other people that normally don't fight together fighting Goonswarm in the north. It didn't end well. So what you have is a lesson learned not to do that. So there's a lot of stuff that Matani and Imperium does. It's kind of has been a long time now, kind of understated. You're starting to see a lot of boasting coming from the FCs, or at least the Asher vote. Not to Matani so much, but you're seeing a lot of Reddit posting by Asher, basically making fun of the people they're attacking. And so you're starting to see a ramping up of, not that we're the boogeyman or that Imperium's the boogeyman, but the they're gonna taunt. It's gonna get people mad. If they can do something about it, they'll fight back harder. But I don't know. Yeah, the answer to Shikamaru's question is: wouldn't the goons want another 9-tack fort because they can replace losses faster and much easier than NCPL? That is generally true. That is generally true. Even in 9-tack 4, if and this is the big thing. If you watch that broadcast that we did, you'll see we're looking for that moment, because if the Keepstar were to have exploded, you would have had many Titans exposed without a tether, and you would have seen them probably come under intense attack. Then it would have been a huge fight if that Keepstar had exploded. It would have been a bigger fight than it was. It was kind of a letdown because it didn't explode, which means that those Titans weren't in any danger since it was basically tethering the whole time, and nobody really engaged, so it was a stalemate. And I think they would have wanted to have that because they could wipe out those Titans and lose twice as much and still be in better shape financially. You never know. I think there are some deep pockets on both sides. And I think I've always stated that the economic advantage that Goonswarm has, not just that there's they have everything. They have structures with redundancies, which means if your stuff gets blown up in one structure, it stays in the same system. So you can continue to fight in the same system. That's an important advantage. And so when you have a Fortizar in every system, that gives everybody a staging ground, at least for capitals and below. But when you lose your stuff, if you have redundancy, it doesn't go to low sec. So it's really good they built redundancies on this. They have structure redundancy, and they have a lot of people who are constantly keeping up their defenses by mining a lot and doing stuff inside the system that's helping their defensive levels stay high. And then you have stability and wealth generation, which is an attractive recruiting tool. And so the more people come to that situation, the more people will come to that situation because people want to go with winners. And yeah, I guess they have over 20 Keepstars now, so you have that kind of redundancy as well. So the point is they have structural redundancy, they have mass numbers, and people who are doing a diversity of things, and that kind of stability lends itself to really good indicators for a war of attrition, or attrition warfare, because people that attack goons now will have a really hard time breaking them, I believe, because you have to break their morale, and their morale won't be broken if they're not losing all their stuff. That's what I think is important. And fighting is fun. The thing is, people don't want to be losers. They want to be winners. That's why we play video games, to fantasize winning, not fantasize losing. And so as long as you can keep your reputation up and you can keep morale up, either good victories or you resist the psychological warfare that happens, you'll be in good shape. So one of the things that's hurting Guardians of the Galaxies, they have the numbers and they have the equipment, they have the structures, they even have the SOV. But when they started having people flip on them, it showed you a weakness, and that was a weakness in morale. But it's not cool to be in a certain alliance. Corporate leaders are like looking at their corp saying, I got to get these guys a good place to live. And if we're in a shitty alliance that's losing and being made fun of, they're going to want to be someplace else. So they'll look for better options. Sometimes flipping, sometimes just going to a neighbor. I don't know. Yeah, they watch the last show if you haven't. Pro God and Elise and Harvey too, basically talking about SOV, which is pretty interesting. We'll probably do another episode on just Sov, because I want to get people like them that, everybody craps on Fozzie Sov, they call it. I've always called it Aegis Sov because that's what it is. And I've been neutral on it. I don't have strong reactions one way or the other. I don't have to suffer it, but also I can hear that a lot of people don't like it, but that's kind of all you hear. And so it's nice to hear high level people saying, no, it's a good system, and let me tell you why. So it's nice to have that kind of point of view too, instead of the constant banging on this really sucks. So we may have a show on just Sov and the merits of it and where it is now, because it's been changed since it started. Okay, last question here is Provi block changing. Will Provi block change its long-standing neutrality after recent events? I don't know. I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. I don't think Provi will change because I don't think the lesson was they need an ally to defend them. First of all, they're not that kind of a group. I mean, they may join Legacy, because if they were a part of Legacy, maybe Test and Brave would have helped them out. But Test and Brave, even with Providence, would not have been able to resist PLNC, at least a motivated PLNC. So they wouldn't have made a difference. And I think they see this as, look, they're coming to take our stations. Once those stations are gone, they'll go away, and we can resume NRDS, the style that we had before. I would think that there's really no big lesson here except that you all of a sudden had something valuable and people wanted to take it. I don't think the lesson was, wow, without allies we're vulnerable, because they've been there since 2000. I want to say since 2005. And they only got interrupted once. That's when AAA knocked them out in 2011. And NC was actually a part of that. He knocked them out too around 2012. Other than that, Providence has owned that place for like 7 years. And they didn't have allies. They weren't in a coalition or anything like that. And I think the only thing that's changed is that these stations came online. Once they're gone, I think things should resume to where. Yeah, 2007. Okay, that's later than I thought. But yeah, Providence has been there a long time. I know that CBA was formed right out 2003. It's the place that Pi was. So when you talk about the first corporations, CBA was, sorry, I forget, let's check. Right? One last thing we can do. Well, we want to know about a history of a corp. Which is what I want to focus on, by the way. I want to focus on corporation. Let's go first to CBA, the Alliance. There it is. Okay, so here's CBA, and I can go to corporations at CBA by hitting the button. And then what you want to do is make sure it's in order of joined. And that's not right. So I didn't want to happen. I think they got interrupted somehow. But their lead corporation. CBA? What the? They left. Surprising. Yeah, see, 2004. I mean, alliances started, and CBA was one of the first alliances ever created. And I believe is it Imperial Dreams might be, or other group? Imperial Dreams. They were one of the first corporations. I think they were like 4. I don't know. They were one of the first corporations ever made. The CBA, Providence, the Provi block, the heart of Provi block, those guys have been around since the beginning. They may have taken Providence 2007, but they've been around since the beginning. Old guy. Okay. I'm gonna need one more night of mostly writing, less talking. I got into show mode because we had guests on and we just started talking. The first episode of this is really just me working quietly and then I would talk very occasionally. So what I'll do now is stop talking so much, and thank you guys for your questions. And Bleezy, thanks very much for all the information you gave me. I'm going to hang out though for a few more minutes, and I'm going to start writing. And I'll still answer questions, but I won't go into these long. Yeah, so this article, thank you. This article, I am a writer first. I've written a lot of stuff before I ever did talk show and stuff like that. I ran EN24 pretty much. I built the team there pretty much when I was there 3 years ago. And then I came over to thematani.com just to be a writer, kind of lay low. But Scion, I got to talking, and he said, why don't you run the news department? So I ran the news department. And so I went from writer to editor. And I would only write every once in a while when there was like a special investigation to do. And this is kind of how we do it. We have like 3 or 4 guys and gals. And, you know, we're working together like this, just like you guys are listening to me talk and watching me write. And people would throw links in, and we just investigate the links, and then we try to figure out, like I'm doing, like how do I get from here to here? And what I'm thinking of is if you saw the article on Imperium, I'll just go there. Imperium News. Go to search up here. Olivia. This article here is a. Now, I said something about headlines before. That is, I am Olivia suicide scam exposed. That kind of a headline is a summary headline. It tells you what the story's about. And those are good headlines because in retrospect, when you go back a year and you're looking for something, you want to see an index of things that happened. So a good headline is, tell me what's in the story. Instead of a flourish or a creative sentence that invites you into an article to figure out what it's about. That's not how you should do it. Well, this article is written by a team of people. It was brought to our attention. I think a guy asked Rivra, who was a friend at the time. I don't even think she was a writer. That something was fishy. Rivra brought it to me. We started looking into it. We started asking each other questions. We started, she primarily did a lot of the driving of finding out things and getting updates. And I pretty much like asked the questions and wrote out a first draft, and then we took out the parts that weren't fitting. Dirk McGurk was a big part of getting the tone right. So it was a team effort, but it was like this. And we would do all kinds of tricks. Like we wanted to find out, you know, where's this picture? And so if you use, what is it? Chrome, and you right click on it and you say find similar, it'll find all the versions of that picture on the internet. So you can kind of see right here where the fake Olivia is used. We basically did a reverse search on it through that and found that the actual identity of the person, because the picture was exactly the same, was something else. And so we knew that this was an identity theft. Same thing with the sister. And this article basically unveiled a terrible scam where a guy was using these pictures of really beautiful females from the internet and creating a whole story about how they were sisters, and one was sick and needed help, and one was pleading and basically asking for donations. And it was a scam to make money off pictures of fictional people, and it was all done by this guy. We didn't get into the guy. We left all that out because we didn't want to dox him. But it wasn't the first time he'd done something like that. But basically, here's the point of the article. The good news is that you don't need to worry about Olivia, because of course all these people were worried about Olivia being treated badly. And because Olivia and her sister are not real. And that was really it. The point is, don't worry about these people. They're not going to commit suicide because they're not real. It was a very tragic story because somebody was so disturbed they would do something about that. Ooh, you can see some of the nice stuff. Great article, very well written. This is a great article. If you haven't read it. But the point is, yeah, we used a lot of, it was a group effort of people writing and rewriting. I have to hand it to my favorite editor, Minxie, who does a lot of my, she does a lot of my rewrites. He corrects my work and makes it flow very nicely. And I kind of feel like I can build bones. And she really puts the flesh on because I transition too fast when I write. As you can see, my first draft, a lot of the writing just goes really fast, right through everything, doesn't really explain anything. And for a person who doesn't already know, it's kind of hard. So she fattens that up, makes it worth reading, stuff. Yeah, no kidding. If you're going to do a scam, you use a beautiful girl and comes out to White Knight. There's some funny things that happened along the way because, right, the day before I published that article, this guy at Neocom wrote this, he did a video and he was basically calling me out to get my facts right, something like that. And it was his site that had championed Olivia the most. And so I didn't say anything. I let the articles do the talking. But the funny irony was he's telling me to get my facts right, and he's the one that perpetuated a giant lie because he didn't check his facts. So I thought that was pretty funny. We had a lot of we're kind of laughing about that after this released. Yeah, so when we exposed that guy, there was a second article that came out to show what he was doing in game. There's more stuff, and CCP just nuked him. Hopefully, he's gone from Eve. Again, he was. I think that's called Valent. I don't know what it's called. There's a certain word for it, but it's a certain type of scam. It does real damage to real people. It's just disgusting. So glad to get rid of that guy. Yeah, so that was a successful article done like this, in these kinds of ways. So, okay, I'm gonna write a little bit more, and then we'll close that session out. I gotta finish this article. Have somebody rewrite it because I'll be too close to it. I don't know what more to say about this. Just draw the map. Testicle. And it's not good to have a relative date. I mean, you can. It's conversational, but I don't know. I guess it's fine because you're going to stamp this article. So if you say last week, you just look at the article and say a week ago. If you're not going to use dates for the article being posted, never do it last week. Makes no sense. This one I don't understand, and it's because I haven't paid attention today. But is PL running away from Providence? There's some joke about that. I've heard that if PL has announced they're running away, they're just laying a trap. So wonder what's going on there. Oh, and I did get a quote. I wrote him last night when I did part 1 of this. That was a quote. That is a quote that I was talking about PL and why it goes here. Why PL took Providence. And I said, oh, it's because PL people are like this. You can't really say that. So then I asked Elise to summarize that for me. He did. It fits right in. We'll double check it. And now it's true because it's coming from a source rather than me. But I don't risk pissing off PL members by speaking for them, which is something a writer from EN24 did and got into big trouble for that. Pretty much lost his reputation. Really even know what's happened so far in Providence? Yeah, we can look at the region quick. I have a really cool mapping program that I'm going to use as our official mapping program. And you guys should support him. I'm supporting him, and we're going to work together. I'm going to use these maps for our site. It's called EVI. Nice guy from Europe. So we'll check out Providence. We just type in Providence up here. It's real-time information. So if you click on a station, you can say show system info, and it can tell you SOV info. Campaign starts. Oh, it's funny. Looks like these are being knocked into force. There's also other places you can that will show you. It looks like a lot of stuff is being reinforced, but they're going to be in early cycles right now, if they're even. Well, these are free-ported. Yeah, wrong. So there's a ton free-ported here and here. If we look at, I think they have. See what they have. These are mostly SOV changes. But yeah, you do have a lot of, let's see if you narrow it down to Providence. Yep, you can. So this is Providence, and this is all today and yesterday. So it's definitely a lot of free porting happening. That's what we saw on the map here. This free porting. That's a ton. Look at that. All free ported. That's probably half the region. Purple Helmet Warriors is actually PL. Probably. It's telling me who's doing the attacking. One other place to look, as I said before. Stations has maps. Yeah, PGL was on the last show. So we'll bring him back on. I always love talking to that guy. I just love the way he talks. So this is exciting. So a lot of that's actually happening from CVA. Surprising. Pandemic Legion is over here. I need to find out what's going on. So I will ask. Timers looks like a ton of shit is free ported. And I don't know what the strategy is for PL. They're going to stick it out and fight. If they're going to let CVA in. So the test now has to fight CVA, and then PL sits back and waits, let them fight it out, and then PL attacks. It's a possibility. You want to be the third party if you can be. And so that's probably what PL strategy might be, because if CVA and Test decide to team up, then Pandemic Legion's the one that's outnumbered. Possibly. Well, and I am ending with PL's response. Yeah, so if Test and CVA have made a deal on splitting up Providence, which would be very smart for CVA, then PL's going to have a harder time. Yeah, it's funny. They're not conquering it for CVA. So if they're working together, which they probably are, I don't know. They must have some kind of plan. Yeah, I'll probably have to ask Pro God or Billy what the plan is. So that'll be out the end of the articles, like what's actually happening. And that is interesting. And that it kind of answers the question. If EL is going to be outmatched by Test and CVA together, actually it's not just Test, it's Legacy. So I have Brave in there too. At that point, there really is no decision. You're not going to be able to hold on to Providence, then you just kind of hang out in the north, and so the goons probably won't be attacking, because this looks like it's falling really fast. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting. Maybe we'll bring back Pro God this Sunday and really go into this, really dig into this. I want to try to get the CVA in here. Pro God, maybe get Elise back. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, I have to actually work tomorrow, so I'm going to take a nap. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope if you're thinking about writing, and Bleezy, you sound like you'd be a good writer. You too, Shakamura. You guys should think about writing and do the same thing I'm doing. I'm happy to help you out. Write for INN, write for TIS if we actually open up to writers. And or anywhere else, EN24. Well, I don't know. There's a new place that just opened up by the editor of EN24. He broke off from EN24 today. He's starting his own paper. And oh, Denara, okay. No wonder he's familiar. You seem to know a lot. That makes sense. Yeah. There's a new paper that's put out by Kurt, who was the editor for EN24. He's now broken off and he's doing his own thing. It looks like a pretty straightforward, neutral position. Be interesting to see what happens there. I'm still wrestling with what targeting stations are going to do, if they're going to have writers or a writer. I'll probably open it up to certain people, and then we'll just grow out of the show, writing summaries like I'm doing to support the show. Do that for a while, see how that works. If people read it, like it, we can expand from there. Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, I'll do it again. I'm gonna do this often. Just I should probably do more writing than talking, but I like talking with you guys. I like sharing what I know. But more than anything, I really wanted to show you guys how to find things so that you know things and go to the primary sources rather than just listening to people like me. Yeah, that economic article would be tough because you have to get over the. It could be interesting. I would make sure you cover destruction of logistic paths. You probably talk to Mini True about that. You know all these guys probably, but that's a big part of it. I like the way they go after enemy supply lines. It's pretty cool. It's just the market trading and market work all plays a role. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys very much. See you next time. I'll do this again.